So, Jason, I'm really excited to have this conversation. We did an athlete interview with Aaron Huchin just last week, and it was a good first experiment. And we're getting some, positive feedback around it so far because I think ultimately what people are interested in this Boulder community and really the Masters community at large is, they want to feel recognized. And there is
Yeah.
so much to be recognized, and there's so many cool, as I said in the last interview, there's so many cool stories. There's so many great backgrounds and things that are just worthy of highlighting. And there's a lot of opportunity here in the Boulder community. So let's keep the experiment alive. Thank you for offering your services. I'm eager to have some conversation here and yeah, just keep this thing rolling.
Well, I think this would be fun. It's rare that I'm the interviewee, right? I'm often on the other side and sharing. So I'm coming to this with you gave me a bit of an idea of where you're going to go with this, but I also tried to come without a lot of pre-preparation in my head so that I can have that authentic, you know, just a human being interaction right here, and let's see where this goes.
Sweet. Okay, you come in with the right mindset. Let's do this. So I'm going to actually kick us off with a lightning round. I've got 10 questions. We're going to kind of try to keep this as rapid fire as we can. Um, the first handful of questions are basically like one word. It's a this or that. And then the last
Yep.
couple, you can take a beat to think about it, but we'll keep this moving along. And I'm sure we'll have something we'll circle back to here. Okay, ready to rock. Lightning round. First time. CNN or ESPN?
Oh man, uh, I, there's got to be a third option that's neither. Uh, Neither, but
Okay.
probably. I mean, probably CNN, given the dichotomy there. So yeah.
Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings?
Wow. This is where I got to take a beat on all of these. But Lord of the Rings,
Beach vacation or an adventure vacation?
beach vacation,
Every
hundred
time.
percent.
Sweet or salty?
Salty,
A good movie or a great book?
a good movie all day.
Okay. Now, barbell or gymnastics?
Gymnastics,
What's your go-to cheat meal?
ice cream. Uh,
Mm.
yeah, I mean it's a dessert, but ice cream, 100%.
Okay, you said salty, and then you're going ice cream. You threw me
Well,
there.
yeah. I mean, I could have said so many things there. There are many items on the sheet, but if I do desert island, I got to pick one. I got to go with ice cream.
What are some of your hobbies outside of fitness? And name a top couple that come to mind.
Uh, um, Backpacking, fishing, with my boys. Love doing that. Uh, I mean, another hobby is playing poker. I
Ooh.
did that as a profession for a bit historically, and a new hobby that I'm playing with is, this is coming out of left field, is futures trading, which has strategy a lot like poker. Although ideally it's not gambling, but it's a hobby, and I just kind of my hobby is learning new things. I really love learning new
Mm.
things.
What is a weakness that you're attacking right now?
It's always the barbell. Given my uh, answer earlier, where I if I have a choice, I prefer gymnastics, but I'm always attacking the barbell. As far as weakness goes, I've been working on it for years and years, both clean and jerks and snatching. Where I'm plenty strong, man. I've got as much strength as the next guy within reason, but dialing in the proper technique and muscle memory and movement patterns with the clean, I can always get a little bit better. I'm always practicing that, always practicing snatch movement patterns. So I am. Uh, I don't want to say I'm always attacking them, but I'm very focused on keeping them as absolutely high as I can be, or as much of a focus as I can be.
I like that answer. I've just taken a note. I want to come back to that one. I think there's a lot to be discussed there. Last lightning round question is what would you say your greatest strength as an athlete is?
Generally, one of my greatest strengths is I want to say grit,
Hmm.
meaning
Oh
I
yeah.
always feel like I can, if you give me long enough, I can outwork, I can catch you, I can outgrit the next athlete. If I feel good, everything's going well. I think about the handful of workouts where I felt like I won a competition, or because of this particular effort in a workout or multiple workouts. It was just the grit to hang on a little bit longer, or the grit to push the echo bike a little bit more. And everyone's got grit. Everyone has it. So it's hard to think of that as an overwhelming strength. But it's just one of those things. The other idea with grit is this idea of consistency. That um, is that the right word, or relentless? I'll use the word relentless
Hmm.
because I like that word as well. Like uh, wherever I'm at in a particular competition where we're being tested, regardless of the placement that I'm at or how I feel. I think about the last Legends Championship where I was very sick through the entire competition. I was never giving up. I was always gonna go. I was always gonna push. I was gonna be relentless until the end. And if I didn't win, I didn't win. It's okay. It's okay. But I was going to be relentless until we're done. Once we're done, I could go to the hospital and die if necessary.
I really like that answer. It actually kind of sets up where I want to go next in this conversation, which is these kind of life-shaping moments. I think you, Jason, have a really unique story, and that, it's why a lot of people in the community, respect you and appreciate you, and I think have a great sense of like inspiration from your
Yeah.
story. And your transformation is one that's not easy, and it's not common. And so to go from where you were to where you are is, it's pretty dang inspirational. However, people are familiar with that story. And so where I want to go a
Mm-hmm.
little bit and kind of touching on this grit thing is like, what are some of the life-shaping moments, whether that was growing up, part of your childhood, people
Yeah.
that influenced you, experiences that you had, whatever it was.
Yeah.
What were some of those moments that you think were kind of like core shaping moments of who you are?
Yeah.
And I'm guessing some grit was probably established along the way there.
Yeah. There was, and I will go back to childhood. Honestly, that's probably where some of the biggest uh, life defining pieces, to the puzzle of who I am now, where all of that sort of started. And even, I've shared a bit publicly, especially recently, about my addictions and sobriety, and how those have been a part of my life for a long time. And we could even call, the drive for success. We could call that an addictive pattern, right? So, I grew up in a home that had a lot of chaos, a lot of chaos. Parents were married, but dad was in and out of the house multiple times, or multiple separations, um, living in his own apartment, and then in the house, and then in his own apartment again. So I had a lot of transition, and lived in that chaos, and grew up. And both of my parents had fairly addictive personalities as well. My dad was uh, he was an alcoholic for probably 20 years, and then one day just quit because beer got expensive. So he decided to stop drinking a 12 pack of beer every day. And he'll talk about it now. He's still alive. He's put a lot of hard miles, city miles, on his body. He's almost 80 years old. It's just amazing he's still alive. But he did meth for probably 20 years. He worked nights. So the way that you stay awake to go to your children's soccer games and gymnastics meets, which I was a gymnast for a little bit, you just stay up for days and days and days at a time. And so he'd be up for 4 or 5 days and then sleep for 3 or 4 days. All of that was perfectly normal to me as a kid. And that is this
Right.
idea of like, I grew up in chaos. I didn't even know it. That was
Yeah.
just normal. And I didn't know that I didn't know that he used meth. I didn't know that in um, this middle class neighborhood in Columbine Knolls. I went to Columbine High School, just this normal neighborhood out around Columbine. That my dad was dealing meth to other people that worked nights at the local grocery store. Like this was just a lifestyle. So I may have discovered all of that later in my teenage years. But that earlier version of me growing up in chaos, I think that was fairly foundational for there's something in me that wanted to be great, right? I wanted to be great at something. And in my teenage years, I tried to be a great gymnast. Like I started gymnastics in 5th grade, 6th grade, and I didn't just want to be a gymnast. I immediately wanted to be the best. And I tried really hard to be the best. I won a state championship in 7th grade, and then I kept progressing on it. And in about 10th grade, I quit because there was no way I was going to make it to the Olympics. It was too late. I started too late. No way I was going to get there. And when I graduated high school, when I went into college and started the early days of my career, I just was relentless trying to leapfrog my way to success, which I crashed and burned multiple times. Like I got into really great jobs. Eventually became a therapist. I got a master's degree and became a therapist, but it was always just striving to be great at something. Unfortunately, during my 20s, I tried to be great at something for like 6 months at a time. And then try to be great at something else. I reset so frequently that I could never be great at something. And it wasn't until my early 30s that I started to develop consistency in trying to do great things. But that foundational element of chaos being in my younger self, having just DNA that is super addictive, right? It's just built-in addiction. I've been sober, haven't drank alcohol in just over a year. And for those that aren't familiar, I did share a video on YouTube about a month ago, I guess. And it shared that for my adult life, except for just a couple of small stints, I drank almost every day. And it wasn't a lot. I didn't get drunk every day, but I drank 1 or 2 or 3 beers before CrossFit. And then as I got into CrossFit at age 30, I started to pull back on all that, but I switched to drinking wine. And then for probably 7 or 8 years, I drank 2 or 3 glasses of wine every day, including the CrossFit Games, including every championship that I won. I had that during championships, I'd probably have just 2 glasses of wine. Like, let's be sensible. We're not having 3, okay? But I've been sober for a year now. I quit a year ago, and all of that chaos in my childhood, plus the addiction, trying to become a normal human being is part of this process that I've been in for the past number of years. In the sense that chaos is normal, and living a clean, healthy life that is consistency, just normalcy, living in a house, not in an RV for 2 years, which was a fun adventure, but it was also super chaotic. It was wonderful, but it fed chaos for me, right? It fed that engine. And now we just live in a house. We live in Birmingham, and I train at the same gym every week or every day, and this is all really good stuff. But that foundation of chaos and all of that has to have played a significant role when I finally found a sport, when I found something that I could be consistent at, stick with. And again, I probably couldn't have done this if I was 24. CrossFit would have been a fad for me. But at 38, I was settling into a routine of life, and I found greatness plus consistency turned out to develop some really nice results for me. So lots of lessons learned over the past 10 years. And I think that's, while that's not the answer to a life-shaping moment, but a life-shaping element that leads me to who I am now.
Man, there's a lot that you shared that I can relate to. And I share some similarities in there as well. And I won't unpack all of that. But what I did find really interesting, what you had shared, and they're a little bit at odds with one another, but it kind of makes sense over the long term. One, which is like your greatest strength as an athlete is grit. You will outwork someone. Kind of the longer the workout is, maybe the higher your probability of success, because you'll just find a way. And then looking back, maybe it was your teens or 20s, I don't know exactly what period of life, but you had the desire to be successful, but it was, a 6 month reset, And so the grit at that point really, I'm kind of interpreting, wasn't there. The desire to be successful was clear, but the
Yes.
grit to like just stick with the things you're not good at and that you may not have a clear path to success. And so the kind of, you said like crashing and burning many times over, were kind of important. You kind of had to have those
Yes.
and then get
Yes.
all that experience under your belt. And by the time you got into, I think it was what you said about mid 30s,
Yeah.
you'd learned enough that it shaped you like, hey, I think grit's the missing element here.
Right. And I mean, I had some bumps and bruises in my 30s as well, but the 20s were way bumpier. But yeah, it was where I discovered that, uh, and it wasn't. I accidentally discovered that consistency while pursuing a goal was a winning strategy. In retrospect, we all know this. In theory, like this all makes total sense.
Mm.
But I have a tendency to just learn generally the hardest way possible. Like if there's a hard way, I'm going to find it. Um,
Um,
and I would say that grit at all times in my life, but especially now, is fueled by a fear of failure. That is a deep embedded fear
mm.
of mine, and it's. I don't know if you've ever uh, looked into, and I barely want to mention it because people really love this personality profile, but it's the Enneagram. Have you ever heard of the Enneagram?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I am a 3, and the 3 is considered an achiever. And if you were to read the definition of a 3, it's me to a T, right? I want to achieve so badly that the fear of failure is an incredible driver, and it
Mm.
has some tremendous benefits, right? I can push myself, I can push my heart rate beyond, I can be incredibly uncomfortable and stay uncomfortable for a very long time because of that fear of failure, that desire for achievement. And its shadow side, of course, is that, in the pursuit of everything, I can get really narrow focused. I can become ultra focused on a task or on a goal or on a process. So while that ultra focus is exactly what you want in a competitive environment, um, it is it has its, of course, like anything else, any strength has its requisite challenges.
There's two things coming up in my mind, and I want you to unpack a little bit. Like, one, fear of failure, I think a lot of people can relate to, right? That's a powerful driver, a powerful motivator. And I think for everybody, they might point to a different like source of the fear,
Mhm.
like failure being kind of the primary, but like if you fail, what does that mean for you? Like
Yeah,
where did the
yeah,
failure and that fear come from? Like what's so
yeah,
scary about failure to you?
yeah. It's failure to me. This is not the healthy version, right? But it is baked into a bit of my identity, right? Um, for good or for bad. But in everything growing up, and this is part of that growing up in chaos. I was praised for achievements, and I got major recognition for every achievement, and so I really found that a way to be loved was to achieve great things, right? Whether it
Yeah,
was
okay.
straight A's in school, or it was to make a lot of money as a young person, and so whatever it was, this was just something that was. I
Baked
don't
into
think
your
my parents
identity.
intended for this. Yeah, it was baked into it. So if I do well, if I do really really well, everything's okay. I'm okay. I'm loved. Maybe I'm getting too deep with it, but it definitely has that deeper roots. It's not just, hey, I just want another medal in my drawer, which I do
Mm.
keep all of my medals in one of the drawers right behind me. I don't have them up on my walls. I don't have
But you got
like
to open that drawer and take
five.
a peek every now and again.
Yeah, I mean, I do. There's a lot in that drawer. It's really cool. When I do open it, I show my boys, like, guys, look at all this. Um,
That's cool.
so it's kind of cool, but um, I think I've heard that other athletes have a similar experience, that when they win, there is a sense of joy but there's also even a more overwhelming sense of relief.
Yeah.
Whew. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We won that one. And it is so strong. It's so strong. That sense of relief. I mean, I think every time I've stepped across the finish line on the final event, knowing where I'm placing, because I knew what I needed to do in the final event, there is just a sense of an exhale, a significant exhale, like, okay, I am okay.
Yeah.
Everything's okay. And that's neurotic, man. I know it. I know it is what it is. And I won't win forever. So I have, at some point in the future, and hopefully not this year or next year or the next year, but at some point, okay, I'm going to have to work through
Yeah.
second place, third place, maybe not standing on a podium. And all of that is, if I have an injury or if I'm sick and I don't stand on a podium, look, I'm going to have a lot of grace for myself. But if I went and I gave it my all and I didn't end up on top, I'll probably have to just jump on a call with you and we're going to have to process this. You're going to have to ask me some good questions. I will have to navigate some therapy. And that is, it's something it's going to come.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't intend when I started CrossFit to end up, achieving what I've achieved. It wasn't the outlook. It wasn't even the plan over the early years when I won a few competitions. It just has now become this thing. Like, okay,
it's a new expectation.
Grubb wins. Yeah, it's a big expectation, and it is tied to the sense of achievement, this fear of failure. It's a whole psychological
100%.
knot. And I think a lot of people have that, right? In people that are watching this have a sense of where they can relate to some of that. I actually was talking to an athlete at the Legends Championship, a great athlete. I compete with him a bunch of competitions. And he looked at me and said, man, sometimes I don't even enjoy this. I have so much anxiety in competition. And I was like, bro, I kind of know what you mean. Like, this is fun. I mean, in a sense, this is fun. This is great. This is a privilege that we get to be on the competition floor and do such amazing things as men, in their late 40s. He's a guy in my age group. At the same time, we are choosing to step on that floor and have huge amounts of anxiety, because if we don't perform as well as we want to, we're just going to beat ourselves up, man. It's just the worst. We will be harder on ourselves than any family member or supporter or child that's watching. No one around us expects us to be superheroes, right? But we put a lot of that on ourselves. So
I can see where, there's some commonality in, you just look at champions of anything, champions of any sport. I think you're going to find some really similar psyche, is what you just outlined, that really strong drive to succeed, the fear of failure, the identity that one finds in themselves with success, which then means anything outside of success is really damn scary. And then you're back to that, massive motivator, and that is the cycle. And I think it probably varies by degree, but that cycle, I think, exists for a lot of, champs of anything. And so, how do you, for those that are aspiring to become champions, it's kind of like, how do you create that cycle in a way that is healthy?
Right.
It's tricky.
It's like remember the which one was it? It was one of the CrossFit documentaries about the CrossFit Games, and they said, being a CrossFit Games athlete is like having a mental disorder, right? I think Rory McCarran said it. He was really funny, because it is that idea that we do some pretty radical things, pretty crazy things to try to achieve amazing goals. You could translate that into anything. If you want to be successful in life, Hormozi talks about this stuff all the time. Like, you have to put in the work. You have to be terrible for a while. You have to be consistent. All of those things.
Yeah.
And then, there's probably just certain elements of like, well, you also have to be imbalanced. I actually talk about this quite a bit in some of my YouTube videos about being great at anything requires a level of imbalance.
Yeah.
And imbalance is generally frowned upon, right? You can't have a perfect balance between work and family and life and training and downtime and recovery. None of that stuff all balances out correctly. There are going to be biases and compromises and times when you're out of balance. So I don't know where I'm going with that point, except that
That's right.
trying to find that healthy way to achieve all of this is I don't know if we can define exactly what the perfect healthy way is. We just know that to be great in anything, I think of Elon Musk, probably one of the most imbalanced human beings of all time, as far as like the guy that works 18 to 20 hours per day,
Yeah.
every day, 7 days a week. That crazy level of imbalance has created a significant amount of success in his world.
Hmm.
But I mean, a huge cost, huge sacrifice, and you know that's a significant example of imbalance.
Yeah, I agree. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about Boulder. So we've gone
Yep.
through some really interesting life-shaping experiences for you, and thank you for being transparent and vulnerable there. I want to talk about Boulder and we've got members of the community that are obviously in, hooked, loving it, feeling that camaraderie within the community, all the things you want them to feel. And you got folks that are just coming in to Boulder. And I think regardless of where you're at in your Boulder experience, I think everybody wants to know either what does it stand for? What are the values? How did this come to be?
Yeah.
Where is Boulder going? Because I can speak as a member of the community, man, it feels great to be a part of it, grateful to be, a part of Boulder. I'm just loving my experience. But also I'm like, man, where are we headed? I'm excited for the unknown and kind of the direction of Boulder. So if you could just speak to all of that.
Sure. Yeah.
Take it away.
So Boulder started. I'll try to give the Cliff's Notes version as much as I can, and then let you dig deeper where is necessary. But a good friend of mine, when I owned a CrossFit gym from 2015 to 2019. One of our members was a chief marketing officer for multiple companies. Brilliant, like 67-year-old man. And I was talking about at my gym, what I really wanted to serve our community there and bring in, athletes that were over 35. I was an over 35 athlete, and I wanted to be able to share my story and have our gym reach the soccer moms and dads in the community of Golden, Colorado. And so he was he was playing with some different phrasing, and he's like, "Hey man, what if this idea of Boulder not older, or get Boulder not older?" And I'm trying to say it with the enthusiasm that Bob had. Bob had such enthusiasm. I'm like, I love that. Get Boulder not older. So uh, eventually I sold the gym. Actually an opportunity presented itself. I sold the gym. And within a year, I started trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life after selling the gym. I was still training at the same gym. They were very generous. I could still do that. But I was trying to figure out what was next. And I started to shift to online training. I wanted to be able to help that same demographic, just moms and dads, live healthy lives, whatever that looks like, right? And so I turned jasongrubb.com, which I had owned, into a one-on-one training platform or online training platform. And I started by charging a couple $100 for a 12-week custom program. So I did 12 weeks of custom programming for like less than $150 a month. It was overwhelming and absolutely way too much work. So much work. But
Yeah.
I had a handful of clients, and eventually I started to develop 12-week programs, and I would run all these people through a 12-week program, and then volume 2, and then volume 3, and volume 4. I would just tell them, this whole group, like, hey, the first person that was getting through the first volume, I was like, hey, volume 2 is ready for you, which meant that I was 1 week ahead of him. And I was building volume 2 1 week ahead of the furthest person. I built 4 volumes of just online. It was at-home training. It was during COVID, so I was helping people train at home. And all of that time, I wasn't programming for myself. I was following another training program. I mean, those of you that have followed me over the years, you saw me on the leaderboard at Mayhem. I was following Mayhem, but I was providing training for athletes, and so I was doing this. It was part of my income. YouTube was part of my income, and one day my wife and I, we were driving, across the country with our RV, and we were toying with this idea of like this. How do we really refine this idea of get bolder, not older? I had that hashtag on my truck right? It was part of a logo for Jason Grubb. Get bolder, not older.
Mhm.
And we were just like, gosh, bolder is such a fun word, right? You could play with bolder. You could live a bolder life. Um, you know, bolder, not older. Be bold. All of these ideas were
Oh
running
yeah.
through our heads, and we're like, wonder if Boulder Athlete is available as a domain. And so I'm driving. She's like, Boulder Athlete is available. So is Boulder Nutrition. So is Boulder Coach. I'm like, buy them all. Like, buy all of those. Let's do
Yeah.
that. And I repurposed or rebranded the training I was providing online from jasongrubb.com to boulderathlete.com at the time. This was 2022, I believe, the fall of 2022. And it was, I guess I'll just be transparent about the story. So I rebrand that and I launch it in early 2023. And I just sort of announced it on Facebook, or I mean Instagram. I'm like, hey, Boulder Athlete, like if you're just looking to get fit, Boulder Athlete, I've got workout programs on there ready for you. And it was for the general everyday athlete at the time. I had confidence programming for someone who wanted to get off the couch and get fit, starting with body weight workouts and then work into dumbbell workouts. And I got a call from Mayhem saying, hey, I was a sponsored athlete from Mayhem, and I'm providing programming. We've got a conflict of interest. And I was like, oh no. I didn't intend to have a conflict of interest. It was clearly a conflict of interest, but I didn't intend for that. I was like, we're not even doing the same thing. But okay. So that was, I had to try to kind of figure that out. And this was early 2023. So I knew that I was like, I have to do something. And here's the story around how Boulder Athlete became what it is now. I was in a position where I was working with Mayhem. I was sponsored by Mayhem, and what sponsored meant as a master's athlete is essentially like I got free programming, a free subscription, and I could come work out at Mayhem if I wanted to. That was basically it as a master's athlete. I wasn't paid to be an athlete. That was just not part of the contract. So whatever. I loved the family that I had there. It was great. It was great. But I knew that I had to do something, and so I couldn't do both of these. So I actually approached Mayhem and I said, hey guys, I've been the Masters representative for you guys. I've been promoting Mayhem for quite a while. I was like, let's just work together. I propose. I'd love to come on board. I'd love to be your Masters guy. And we can take this thing and we can really serve the Masters community. We can go for it. And I made a proposal. I did a whole slide deck. I did the whole thing, proposed it, and proposed a salary. Because if I was going to do this, it meant I was going to give up everything else I was doing. Yeah. This was going to be 100% all in. And they came back and they said, "Hey, this isn't going to work for us. Like we just can't pay you." And I was like, shoot, okay. But I also loved this idea. I was like, I really think that I can make a big difference in the Masters community working with a training camp. So I actually spoke with the other big training camps, and each one of them loved the idea. I mean, it's the craziest thing. I was talking to legends on the phone, people that in this sport. Like I look up, I'm like, I can't believe I'm talking to this person on the phone right now. Gina, my wife, I just talked to this person. And so they're answering my call. It was wild. And, the offer was pretty consistent across the board. Hey, we'll give you a certain very small percentage of any athletes you bring in. And that's how we'll do it. We'd love to do that with you. And so what I felt like is I was taking all the risk, giving up everything I was doing.
Yeah.
And for just a very small percentage. And I was nervous because what all of this was telling me was that if I was going to do this and go all in on this, I was going to have to do it myself, right? I mean, I have to take Boulder, and we're just going to have to go for it.
If you're taking all the risk, you might as well take all the risk.
If I'm going to take all the risk and I'm going to go all in on it, then let's just do this. There's not an advantage. The advantage that I was looking for is there was already these media teams in some of these camps. All we need is 1/10 of the media team, and man, we could do some really great stuff, right? So I had met my co-founder in Boulder Athlete right around that time. He was actually helping me with some of these conversations consulting with me a bit, and it was really helpful. And he proposed. He was like, "Hey, look, he has built a number of businesses, and is just a brilliant business person. He's in the sense of like Matt Frazier has Matt O'Keefe as the business manager kind of guy. Adam is my co-founder. Adam is that guy. He's just, man, he knows business. And I've got some business background, but Adam really plugs some big holes for me and can take things a lot further than I can, which is great. So he was like, hey, I'd love to partner, mentor you, be helpful. And so he made this proposal. We just decided, hey, let's do this. Let's launch officially at the CrossFit Games in 2023. We'll launch at the Games. So I had to go back and now I was at Mayhem at the time. I was literally living in Cookeville. We were there for 2 months to go from quarterfinals through semifinals that year. And this happened right in the middle of that. So I went to Jake at Mayhem and I was like, hey man, this is my decision. I've got to do this. I'm going to go on my own. We're going to launch Boulder or myself. And I'm going to be totally transparent. I totally get it if you guys don't want me here right now to do semifinals. And he's super great. She's like, bro, it's cool. I totally get it. You got to do what you feel like you got to do. If you want to do semifinals here, that'd be great. And so I did, and it was fun. It was hard leaving. It was very hard leaving. It was a big decision, a big leap of faith. But that was how Boulder launched. And it was more like, okay, if no one else wants to do this and go all in on Masters, we're just going to build the brand that does that. And that's what we did. So Boulder launches at the Games in 2023. We offer cash prizes to Masters competitors for every event. And it was, dude, there's a lot of Masters athletes in a lot of events. So we offered $100 to the winner of every event across every category, just to sweeten the pot for them. And what's awesome about Masters athletes is some of them come and collected their money. Others were like, hey, could you find a cause to donate this to? Like, I don't need $100. Just donate my $400 to a cause. So we connected with Sam Dancer and his foundation. So we donated, I think we donated like $2,500 to Sam's foundation. The guy gave me a full body hug. If you haven't been hugged by Sam Dancer, you haven't lived. So great dude. And that's when we launched. We launched with maybe 50 athletes and just athletes that were like, hey, they've been following me for years and they're ready to give it a go. And that was 2023. We're at 2025 now. So we're about just about 16 months from launch and have really evolved to develop, I think, a really good program. But that's the foundation. That's where it came from. Where are we going? Right? The goal is to help serve every competitive Masters athlete. That's been our first target, right? Sort of the tip of the spear. We want to serve the competitive athletes as much as we can. We also see ourselves wanting to support Masters athletes that don't find themselves in the CrossFit gym. So another sort of category or vertical that we're just touching on now, we call it Boulder Body. But this is really like those guys that go to Lifetime Fitness. They walk in to a Globo gym and they're like, all right, what do I do for the next hour? Right? We want to provide a blueprint for that, make it really simple for them. So it's a project that we're working on. It's a side project because this is our focus. We do see ourselves moving into the affiliate side of things. We feel like that is a big win. A lot of the Masters athletes that train with us are gym owners, and it would be great for them to have that consistency in the sense that they're training with Boulder athlete and they can jump into class. And it's one of the Boulder athlete workouts that they do in class. Just makes a lot of sense for us to do that.
100%.
We also believe so strongly that most gyms, the primary demographic in those gyms are Masters athletes. And so instead of programming for 20-year-olds, I mean, this is a loose thought, okay? I don't know if this is what it's going to look like. But my thought is you program for 35 plus. That's RX, right? And you have like that 50 plus athlete is doing shoulder to overhead at 115, right? Whereas you and I are doing it at 135. And you can always scale up for the 22-year-old beefcake, and he could be going 165. So I think that you serve your community best when you program for the largest chunk of the demographic in a gym. Yeah. I believe that's Masters in most gyms, not all gyms, but most gyms that are in the suburbs just look around. It's people looking to get healthy, be smart,
Yeah.
recover well, have a process to their training, not just come in and beat the crap out of themselves. And that's part of our training philosophy, even for these competitive athletes, being really smart about training, really methodical about how we do this, how we recover, when we recover. I think that can translate to the affiliate side as well. So those are some directions we see ourselves
Yeah,
continuing to
that's
evolve.
cool. Wow,
Yeah.
that's gonna for whoever watches this, I think that's gonna resonate, and it's cool to know you're part of a moving train. It's kind of, what I always say is like, hey,
Yeah.
you're attached to something that you might be committed to and loyal to, but if you feel like it's static, that's gonna wear off at some point. Your loyalties will wear, and you're looking for what is that moving train, and for Boulder to be where it's at and moving in a positive direction, I think is what people want to be a part of. Which leads me to my next question, and let's make this the last thing that we discuss here is like, what does Boulder stand for? You had shared the values, and the first time I saw those, it just instantly was like, oh man, that just feels right. The confidence in your preparation. I've been talking with my guys, the wolf pack, before I had seen these values, and I'm just, oh man, I'm just so much more confident. I just feel so much more confident to go compete because of all the prep that we're putting in and all the different movements and the diversity of challenges that we're facing. So that confidence and preparation being one, the relentless in your pursuit. I love that. It speaks to consistency over time, just constantly attacking, and then humble in your execution. I love that. That just speaks to me personally. Kind of I feel that, but I think many do and can relate. And you root for the person that is kicking ass, but is really humble in the way that they do it.
Yes.
It's hard to get behind the person who's kicking ass and pointing to their name on the back of their shirt all the time.
Yes, I agree. And this was a project that Adam and I took on, and we spent hours and hours. Days and days, hours per days, going through, lists of values that were pages long, consolidating those values down to, what are we really talking about? And then still having like 12 values, but then consolidating all of those down to what are the three things that are who we are. It was both this idea of like, whenever you create values, I think you want to be aspirational, but also have them resonate with actually who you are. It can't be so aspirational that you're not even there. And I know that for me as an athlete, and me as as an element of the leadership of Boulder Athlete, these are things that have helped guide me as I've pursued competition and done this. It's been this idea of being confident in my preparation, going in to any competition and looking at the workouts presented and being pretty excited. I've been in places where I've been nervous, right? I'm nervous I've had so much anxiety historically, around like maybe quarterfinals at noon on a Thursday. They're going to release all the workouts, and I'm just praying that there's not this and that there's not this and not this. I'm scared, right? Now I can't wait. I'm like, I can't wait to see what they're going to present to us, because I'm ready for whatever they've got. Now I'm just curious how they're going to spin it, because I've tried to prepare us in every possible way, given the history that we have with CrossFit, and they'll still surprise us. That's the magic and the fun about this craft, is that you can't not be surprised. The first time they threw out shuttle runs, were like, shuttle runs or wall walks? Like, we did that to warm up. Now that's a thing. Wall facing handstand push-ups, which we did yesterday. We did wall walks, wall facing push-ups. We don't mess around. Like, we're gonna attack these things. So that confidence and preparation is something that resonates with me, who I am. And you're right. I hear from athletes at competitions, I feel ready. I felt more ready than this than I ever have. And it's exciting. I almost got beat by one of our Boulder athletes at Legends, from an athlete who very much felt. He just walked in, and he was like, I feel more prepared than I ever have. I'm like, ooh, I'm a little nervous, actually. I'm a little nervous about Joey. So I was excited, but I was like, hey, if anybody beats me, if a Boulder athlete beats me, I can live with that. the relentlessness in the pursuit, I think, is just a given. That this is one of those things that you cannot half-ass this. You can't half-ass it on the floor, both mentally, physically. You can't half-ass your sleep. I don't want to keep using that phrase, but you can't half-ass nutrition. This is relentless in almost every area to be even good at this sport. You have to be relentless. And then that humble in execution, I completely agree, and I'm very much turned off by athletes. And I'm thinking of one. I'm thinking of a few in particular, but yeah, when they're just so excited about the name on their shirt, holding up, just so self-involved, it's something that I haven't been attracted to. In fact, despite the fact that I am in the spotlight quite a bit, and I produce a lot of content that puts me in the spotlight, generally I'm a pretty quiet, introverted. Like after this call right now, I'm gonna go sit in the sauna and not talk for an hour. Right? I've got to dial it down, and I think, the best the athletes that make me the happiest on the competition floor are those ones that finish, take a breath, and then go out there and are just hugging and loving the other athletes on the floor. And those are the athletes we tend to remember over time. And that's, again, the idea, and I've got the values up on my screen right here, but if we are confident and relentless, then we have to be humble in our execution, because we're going to kick people's. So we're going to practice humility, because you're going to go out there and you're going to crush it if those first two are at play.
Yeah, well said. The last piece of this is like, it is so the relentless piece. You absolutely have to be relentless if you're going to be a masters athlete that's competitive. You have literally relentlessly pursued fitness over years and years and years and years and years. It never was a short game. There was no, immediate satisfaction. You had to put in work and sacrifice and discipline over a long period of time, and that absolutely speaks to relentless in your pursuit. So I think it's just, not only is it a great value in general, it is like a perfect value for a masters athlete.
And isn't relentless a more appropriate word than consistent in your pursuit? Consistent is cool. We're saying the same thing, but relentless has some teeth to it, right?
Just some passion,
a little bit of
it.
Just a little bit. Relentless is what draws me in. Consistent is like, I know I've got to be consistent, but relentless has consistency baked in. You can't be relentless and not consistent. So we can use the more aggressive word, because it just has that passion, like you said.
I agree completely. Jason, this has been really cool. I've really appreciated your time, and I hope that people are checking this out, and appreciate also just the vulnerability and the backstory that you shared, and hopefully got to know you a little bit better than they already did. And if they were considering Boulder, well, they better jump on. Get on the train. It's moving, man.
Get on. We're moving fast.